guys, Kanisha G here of the Finance Advocates coming at you with a lesson on payment history. So this lesson is long overdue for the members of the private Facebook group. I have been saying that I was going to do this lesson forever. Ran into some issues because I was trying to type it out, but it was getting way too long. So I've decided to break it down into sections. So today we're going to go over pretty much what I would consider to be the basics of payment history. So this will be considered lesson 1 of the payment histories lesson. All right, let us get started. All right, so it's important to note that payment history has the highest impact on your credit score out of all the other components, inquiries, credit mix, credit age, outstanding debt, or credit utilization. Payment history has the highest impact. Payment history represents on-time payments. That's on-time payments for open accounts as well as closed accounts. So just because an account is charged off, all those 30, 60, 90-day lates are still impacting your credit score, even though it's already in a charged off status. That 35% of your credit score, that is what we consider to be payment history, represents 192.5 of 550 points that we have control over in our credit score. The first 300 points are what they consider to be base points. So pretty much everybody starts with those 300. And then the other 550 points, we have control over it. And because this has the highest impact, this is the most important part of your credit profile as far as your credit score is concerned. Okay, it's important to note here. Some people will have maybe 1 or 2 late payments, and they'll still wonder why their score is so low. It's like I only have 1 late payment, which is rare for people, especially people who are working on their credits. I only have 1 late payment, but 1 late payment can cause your score to drop anywhere between 50 and 100 points. 1 late payment, so you could be great, amazing, miss a payment, and that score will go down, down, down. Then it takes time for it to kind of recover from that. So the first 12 months of a late payment reporting is when it has the most effect. The first 2 years or 24 months, if you will, has a high impact as well. And as you start getting into year 3, 4, and beyond, it kind of has less of an impact. But that first 12 months for sure. And then the first 24 months of a late payment reporting is when you'll notice it in your score the most. So to get all the points possible, the whole 192.5 points possible in this section, you would need to have at least 12 consecutive months of on-time payments across all of your accounts. Okay, so if you have between, let's say, 97 and 99% payment history, you're probably earning about 150 plus points. So most of your payments are on time. You're getting 150 or more points in this section. All right, so these are the objectives. So after reviewing this lesson, you should be able to understand statute of limitations and reporting times and how they are determined. You should be able to review your credit accounts on your credit profile to identify negative payment history affecting your credit score. You should be able to identify positive accounts reporting on your credit report. That's important, and we'll discuss that more later. Determine if your negative payment history will better be addressed by sending a Goodwill letter to the creditor, requesting late payment updates from the credit bureaus, or challenging the entire account for deletion. So the next thing we'll discuss is reporting time. Reporting time is determined by the date of first delinquency. The date of first delinquency should reflect the first date the account went into a delinquent status that led to collection or charge off. So that first 30-day late payment is important because that tells us what we need to do as in regards to reporting time. It is important to note that this date can't ever change, right? So if your account goes into a charge-off status or becomes a collection account, that date of first delinquency should never change. because the first time you were 30 days late is always going to be the first time you were 30 days late. That never changes. Okay. So the reason that's important is because the reporting time of most debts is 7 years from the date of first delinquency. Okay. If that date changes, that increases how long. So say the first date that it was delinquent was January of 2000, I don't know, 15, right? And then somehow it magically is changed that the date of first delinquency changes to the year after that. Now that's an additional year that they have to report that on your credit report. It's against the law, it's against FCRA, it's illegal. Like that should never change. So that's one thing that you always want to make sure you're paying attention to, because that date should also be the same across credit bureaus. Okay. And so I said the reporting time of most debts is 7 years from first delinquency. One important thing to note, or it's common knowledge for the most part as far as I'm concerned, but some people don't know. Most bankruptcies are included in that most debts. They're on your report for 7 years. Chapter 7 bankruptcies are different. They report on your credit report for 10 years. 10 years. And I think, to me, I think it's partially because most of the debt is wiped out and you don't have to pay it. Whereas other chapters of bankruptcy, you're responsible for making payments on it. So the fact that they have given you a clean slate for free probably plays into why it stays on your credit report for a longer time. Okay, so statute of limitations. Statute of limitations is determined by the date of last activity. Sometimes I'll refer to this in the group as the DOLA date. So the DOLA date is the date of last activity. Most times, the date of first delinquency and the date of last activity are the same. So the DOLA date reflects the last day a payment was received on the account. So the DOLA date can change. And the only time that it does change is if a consumer pays anything on that account. So sometimes people will have an account that's charged off, and one day they might get a call, from a little collector or something, and they feel real guilty that day. And so they make a payment. Then right after that, they decide, I'm about to just let this go back delinquent. The fact that you made a payment resets the date of last activity. So this is important because the statute of limitations is determined by the state that the debt was incurred, and it determines how long a company has to sue you and or seek legal action. So this is separate from how long it has to report. We know most debts they can report it for 7 years on your credit report. How long they have to sue you is probably more important to me personally. And that's because, so say you have a debt that is, say your statute of limitations has not passed. So like the state of Louisiana, most of their debts is 10 years statute of limitations, right? It can report for 7 years. That can't change because the date of first delinquency is still going to be the same if it's in a charge off or collection status. If you make a payment on that at year 6, they still can sue you. Like you can still be sued, even if it falls off your report for that matter. With that being said, in Louisiana, for example, it can report for 7 years, but they literally still can sue you 7 years later. That's important to know when you are considering challenging your credit report, or getting or fixing your credit, or having someone else do it. The statute of limitations. And a lot of times creditors won't sue for like small amounts. So like, I don't know, something that's $200 or something. Part of me would say you probably could do a pay to delete for that. But then the other part of me says that they probably won't sue you, but they could. Then when you start getting into debts that are much higher, say you owe $5,000 or $10,000 to someone, and you try to start, repairing it or challenging how they're reporting it, they technically could still sue you if they are still within the statute of limitations. I'm saying this because all of this statute of limitations and reporting time even, but more so statute of limitations, is important to consider when you are determining challenging accounts and how you are going to go about challenging those accounts. All right, so let's take a moment to look at some positive credit accounts. So it's simple enough to look at an account and know if it's positive, but I just want to call out a couple things. So on this first account, we can see, like, just at first glance without reading anything, we can look at this and see at the bottom under 2-year payment history is all green. Okay, okay, okay. That means everything was okay. We don't see anything saying 30, 60, 90, 120 plus to let us know that it was late, right? You can see this is an open account. So I know this lesson is about payment history, but I also call out on this one. So this person's credit limit is $500. Their balance reporting is $8. Listen, this account is good as far as payment history as well as utilization, because we know utilization or outstanding debt, as they call it, is worth 30%. So this person is bombing it, right? They are rolling. I would say anything under 10% is good. 10% of 500 will be $50. They way under that. They're more under in the 1 to 3% range. So they are maximizing their score with utilization as well as payment history. Because again, this is an open account. It's all good. Everything, like, there are no derogatory statuses at all. Payment status is even showing as current. It's just good. There's nothing. There aren't any remarks. The only thing that I do see is Experian is reporting that at some point this high balance was 514. That doesn't really impact your credit score much. So I wouldn't even hold weight to that. If I wanted to, I could challenge it. But in general, you do not want to challenge a good account because you don't want to run the risk of them messing up something else in the process of challenging it. So this account, I would look at this and say, oh, this is good. Keep going, right? So when we keep going, we come to this one. Again, when we look at the 2-year payment history at the bottom, we can see all okays down here. Let's see. So this account is closed. So I have this screenshot on here to call out the fact your payment history, it is weighed by open accounts as well as closed accounts. Some people want their credit report quote unquote clean. So to them, clean will be like they only want their open accounts on there. No, like, you definitely want to keep any closed positive account reporting on your credit report. You don't want to challenge it for any reason because you don't want to run a risk of them doing something wrong or crazy or realizing an error that they made. You don't want to do that. So if it's closed and it looks good, keep it, because this is contributing to your credit age, right? And so credit age is super duper important as well. And credit age accounts, what am I trying to say? Closed accounts are included in credit age as well. So this account was opened in 2014. This is benefiting credit age for sure, because it's been a report on their profile since 2014. So these are just a couple examples of positive. Positive looks positive. Like, you can look at it and see that nothing about it is negative. So with that being said, we're going to take a look at some examples of negative credit accounts. And so let me also say this. This is not all inclusive. There are many different ways an account will be negative, and unless it looks like those two slides or something similar, it's probably negative. But I'm going to look at a few examples, should I say, just to call out things that you want to look for when you're determining what could be impacting your score as it pertains to payment history. So this first account, look at this and think about what the slides that we looked at previously. We can see, and this is probably not very clear, but you can see that there are some okay payments, but then there are red, which means 90, 120 plus days of late payments on this account. So that's one thing. Without even going too far, we can see that. We can also see down here Under 90-day late payments, there are 9 reporting to TransUnion, 10 reporting to Equifax. So even though right here we only see 1 late payment within the 2-year period, for the last 7 years, it's actually been late 10 times. So for me, this account will be the type of account that I would challenge for removal, only because everything about it is bad. Even if you look at the top, you'll see under payment status, it says late 120 days, right? That kind of language also takes away points from the payment history section of your credit report. So it's not just the numbers we see at the bottom, whether they're the 2-year payment history or 7, it's language. Anytime we see any type of derogatory language, that is affecting the payment history section of your credit report, which again is 35% and has the highest impact on your credit score. Okay, so this screenshot, the purpose of this, one of these accounts, when you look at the 2-year history, had no, like I think it may have just been blank for one of them, as far as the last 2 years. So there weren't any late payments for the last 2 years, partially because it's a charge off. So it kind of stopped reporting at some point. But from this view of it, we can see that there are 3 30-day lates, 2 60-day lates, 36 90-day lates on this particular account. This account, at first glance, even without going into too much detail inside of the account, I would know that this is the type of account that I would probably challenge for removal based on something, because I'm pretty sure there will be some grounds or something that they are reporting incorrectly or inconsistently across the bureaus. So I can look at this and just off top, I can see it's a collection or charge off. I know that it's a charge off because Ally Financial is an original creditor, and collection accounts are only ever from collection agencies. GM Financial as well. That's a charge off because it's not a collection agency. It's an original creditor. So whenever you're looking at your credit report from any source, so everywhere you look at your credit report, it might look different as far as just how it looks. So this view, I can collapse and expand different things. And from this collapsed view, I can see a lot of information quick. Like it tells me negative account right here. I can see it's a collection charge off. And this is where it's at. So even if, should I say, these payments are not included in that first or the last, should I say, 24 months, it just looks horrible for someone who you're trying to buy a new car, and they're able to look at your credit report and see you had 36 and 90-day lates. Do I really want to give you a car? Do I really want to do that? You know, so it's important to look at your credit report from all angles. And anytime you see something negative, you need to highlight it, just for at the end when you're trying to determine what you're going to do next. You have all the information you need. Okay. So this account, I have it listed as a negative account only because at the bottom, I can see that even though it's saying okay here, down here, it's showing 3 30 days late, 2 60 days late for TransUnion and Experian. This account, I might handle one of 2 ways. If this were my client, what I would probably do would be to challenge these late payments here. I wouldn't necessarily request that the account be totally deleted. I would probably search for an update. The only reason I say that is because there isn't any other derogatory information at the top, right? They don't owe anything on this. Balance owed is 0. There is not anything in the language as far as it being late. Like earlier, we saw the one that said late 120 days. There isn't any derogatory language in here. It just looks like an account they paid it off. One time they were late within the last 2 years, which we know has the highest impact. And then they also had higher late payments, but it was within the last 7 years. So I will go for this and see what happens to the score, right? And so once I see what happens to the score, I might consider trying to challenge it. But in general, I would probably leave this account as is, except for requesting an update. So with that being said, in a few moments, we're going to talk about different ways you can challenge accounts, one of them being Goodwill adjustments. So at that time, I'll go a little bit further in regards to this account. But for now, keep in mind that it does have a 30-day late. But what I need you to know or focus on is the fact that this is a closed account. And I know it's closed because it has a closed date right here. On this one, I covered the account status because it didn't matter, because what I want you to know is less important. But from this, you can see that it was closed, as far as Tranjoine is saying on the 16th. If this were an open account, though, I would definitely just do a Goodwill adjustment. Because it's closed, we'll talk about it in a few moments. Okay, so this is all about Goodwill adjustments. What is a Goodwill adjustment? So a Goodwill adjustment is when the original creditor removes derogatory remarks in good faith. It is done at the discretion of the furnisher as a courtesy. It is most likely to be granted on open accounts in good standing, but can also work on closed accounts. Okay? Again, most likely to be granted on open accounts in good standing, but also works on closed accounts with one-off situations. That account that we just looked at, technically I probably would go for a Goodwill adjustment. The reason I say that is because even though there are those other late payments in like the 7-year history, because they weren't in the last 2 years, I would go for my luck and hope that my client could make that a one-off situation. I would still have them send the letter that's in the group files to request a Goodwill adjustment. I simply would. And it's only because in the last 2 years, which is what I'm honestly most concerned about, the only time I'm not that concerned about it is if there's like 20 something, 30 something late payments on that same account for 90 days and all of that. Then we probably gonna try to challenge that. But if it's just one in the last 2 years, I'm gonna have them go for that Goodwill adjustment. So when can a Goodwill adjustment be requested? It can be requested when you have an open active account with less than 3 late payments. Now I'm saying less than 3 late payments. I mean, that number you can play with. That's just my ballpark for if I'm going to challenge an account, I'm going to look for discrepancies, or if I'm going to have them do a Goodwill adjustment. Most times with an open account, like probably 4 late payments, I probably will still have them go for it. But how I would have them do it is do 2 at a time or something like that. So I may have them send an email to the CEO for, the first 2, let them get those removed, and then at a later time, and sometimes right after, it just depends, have them go for the next 2. And with any type of adjustment, it's like anything else. You don't want to ask for too much. And that's why 6 late payments, even on an open current account, you asking for too much. Like, there's no way you could tell me that you good at paying your bills, you're a good customer, if within the last 24 months you have 6 late payments. You have to kind of weigh your options and know if what you're asking for is a bit too much. And most times you will know if it's a bit too much. If it's a bit too much, I probably will go for either requesting an update from the credit bureaus. Even with that, I may only do a couple requests at a time, request that a couple be updated at a time. Or if it's open, that's where the challenge comes to me, because I don't really too much care for challenging the deletion of an open account, because you have to know, you gotta know, if you challenge an open account for deletion, they're gonna close your account. And that's just common sense. Like, if you have a credit card and you're trying to challenge that to get off, they're gonna close that account. Because why wouldn't they? Like, why? You don't want it to report, so why wouldn't I remove it? And that's if I don't sue you, if you are still within the statute of limitations, depending on what your balance is. Okay, last question. How can a goodwill adjustment be requested? Simplest way to me is to email a letter to the CEO of the company. I have a list of CEO email addresses in the group files. The letter template is also located in the group files. You just have to kind of adjust it and tweak it. One other thing. Let me go back up. So when can a goodwill adjustment be requested? I almost skipped this, and this is important depending on where you live, right? So goodwill adjustments can also be requested if you missed a payment as a result of a medical emergency or natural disaster. You have a sickness that puts you in the hospital for months. You can use that in your letter to let them know, hey, I wasn't working or whatever. Natural disasters, I wasn't working. Like, whatever you want to say, but it's just certain situations that companies tend to have a softer heart about. And so if you miss a payment, I'm not saying when a natural disaster happens, just miss all your payments so you could go ahead and do a goodwill adjustment. I think y'all know that, but I'm just going to say it for the people in the back. Okay? I'm just going to say that for the people in the back. I'm not suggesting that if you have a medical emergency or a natural disaster, you do not pay your bills. Pay your bills. You need to pay your bills, period. However, if there is a case where you do have a medical emergency or are involved in a natural disaster, it affects your ability to make your payments, then use that for a goodwill adjustment. Even if that places you in a situation where you are not current. So for the most part with goodwill adjustments, you should be current. So for the last 3, 4, 5 months, you should have paid your account on time before you're asking them to adjust it. Like, don't ask them today for an adjustment and listen, I gotta take that back. If you literally forgot to pay your bill, you can ask them. Nothing beats a failure but a try. So I would never say don't try it. Just don't have your hopes up, because again, these adjustments are made at the discretion of the furnisher. And so it's up to them what they're going to do. Just try to use your own discretion when you're determining if you think a goodwill adjustment is right for you based on the things I'm saying. What makes you a good candidate for one, what might not make you a good candidate for one. Just keep that in mind. But as far as requesting them, again, sending an email to the CEO of the company, to me is easiest. Mailing a letter directly to the creditor so you can look at your bill, whatever address is on a bill, you can send it there. I believe there are also, I don't know if I have that on the list. There are mailing addresses for CEOs as well, so you could send it there as well. I'm not sure if it's on that file. If not, I would say send it to the address on your bill. Um, and then the other option, or the last option, should I say, would be to call the company directly and request it over the phone, like whatever number they have for payments. Just call them, and with the script. Now, don't read the script because you want to sound normal. Just know the types of things that you would say when you're on the phone with them. And that one is specific to open accounts. I would not necessarily call if it is a closed account. All right, y'all. So it is time to get started now. The only person stopping you from improving your credit profile is you. If you know when you look at your credit report or your credit score and that number is not giving what it's supposed to give, then you know that it's time for you to take a serious look at your credit profile and get to work. The time is now. It is not next year. It's not 2 years from now. It's not 3 months. Do it now. So the first action steps. This is what you need to do. Because I can tell you all this stuff. And if you never do anything with the information, guess what? However your credit profile look today, next week it's going to look the same or worse if something else goes on there. If you never do something, nothing will ever happen. Step one, again, pull all 3 credit reports from either smartcredit.com /the Finance Advocates LLC, or go to annualcreditreport.com. Annualcreditreport.com currently is offering free credit reports once a week due to COVID. It used to be once a year. Now, due to COVID, it is once a month. Not once a month, I'm sorry. Once a week. You can pull all 3 of your credit reports from annualcreditreport.com. I would say, with that being said, if you are new to credit repair, new to credit profiles, new to wanting to improve your credit score, I would probably start with annual credit report, only because to me it gives a lot of information, right? It gives a lot of information. Now, if you are one that a lot of information at one time overwhelms you and it's going to make it more difficult for you to be able to point out negative items, then I would use the smartcredit.com smartcredit.com link to order your credit reports, because it's just a simpler, kind of more laid out view of all 3 credit reports at the same time instead of one at a time, because annualcreditreport.com, you will pull each one separate. So step 2 is going to be to check each credit account and determine if it is positive or negative. We looked at some examples of positive accounts. We looked at examples of negative accounts. You do whatever you need to do. Just make sure you are marking up all derogatory language and negative payment indicators on all negative accounts. Highlight dates of last activity and then date of first delinquency. This step is important. This is the most important part, because what you don't ever want to do is make your credit situation worse than it is. You have to know what's positive. Whatever is positive, you just leave it as is. The only thing you can do about that account is continue to make your payments on time every month. Don't get any late payments. If it's a credit account, keep that utilization down. I mean, less than 10%. To maximize your score in outstanding debts. Again, I know this is a payment history lesson, but I'm going to always plug everything that is needed for if it is a positive account, keep that thing positive by any means necessary. Okay? If it is negative, use the things I told you. Look at the bottom where it shows you visually if it's 30 days, 60 days, 90, 120. Highlight it, circle it, however is best for you to mark up that thing so you know everything that you need to call out on that to determine what to do next. Mark it up. Mark up if you see any words about in the actual description of it, the status. Sometimes the status will say derogatory, I may say delinquent, or it'll say late 120 days, or sometimes it'll even just say late 30 days. They will sometimes put actual notes into your credit profile. If you see any type of derogatory language like that, charge off, collection, all that, highlight it. Everything, highlight, circle, whatever you need to do. Last thing on step 2 was to highlight dates of last activity and date of first delinquency. You're highlighting the date of last activity first because you want to make sure that is consistent across the bureaus, right? You want that to be consistent if it's negative and you are considering getting it deleted. Okay? You want to look at that to see if that is consistent. You also want to look at the date of last activity. More importantly, actually, is because that says if they can still sue you or not. So I'm going to place in the group files. If it is not already there, I'm not positive. I don't think so. So either before I post this video or after, I will post statute of limitations by state. So you will know the statute of limitations for your state. Date of last activity will tell you, we are past the date of last activity, which means you are not past. I'm sorry, I said that's so wrong. The date of last activity that we see places you on the other side of the statute of limitations, so it's a goal to challenge. What I also say is this: you can challenge an account that is still within the statute of limitations. Just make sure you are aware that if it is within the statute of limitations, they do still have the right to pursue that debt. Just know that, and it's so that then that becomes your decision. Then also highlight the date of first delinquency. You're doing that because if you have a negative account and you can see that the date of first delinquency was greater than 7 years ago, you don't even have to go very far with that one. You can just challenge that one on the basis of the fact that it should not be reporting. You're past the reporting time unless it is a Chapter 7 bankruptcy and it has not been 10 years. For the most part, most other debts, if the date of first delinquency was greater than 7 years ago from the date you are viewing your credit report, you can challenge that to have it deleted because it should have been removed already. Okay, so the last step after you have marked that credit report all the way up, okay, the next thing you're going to do, based on all the information you have in front of you, what derogatory language you see, what negative payment indicators you have, what was the date of last activity, which determines the statute of limitations, what was the date of first delinquency that determines the reporting time. Okay, so now, do I send a Goodwill letter to the creditor? We know we would do that if it's an open active account. We're generally not late. We had a one-off situation that we can just kindly request that they give us mercy and remove or update that late payment. Okay, remember that's a courtesy. Remember when you use that, right? Look at your account. It might have negative on it, but is everything else positive? Probably a good idea to start off with a Goodwill letter to the creditor. Okay. The other thing we can do is request a late payment update from the credit bureau. That one, I will probably do it. Might be a closed account. It may have 2 or 3 late payments on it, or more than that, really. Um, and so I might try to do a Goodwill letter and see if they remove anything. I may not. If it's closed, they're probably not going to do it anyway. So that may be a wasted step. Again, nothing beats a failure but a try if you want to go that route. Still try to do the Goodwill letter. If they tell you no, maybe try again with a Goodwill letter. If not, you can request a late payment update from the credit bureaus. Again, there is a difference in requesting an update and requesting that something be removed from your credit profile. Look at that credit account. What are you trying to do? Do we like everything else about it? You paid it off. Did you pay it off? Does it still have a balance? And it's derogatory and it has a bunch of late payments? Probably that last option, challenge account for deletion. Step 2 is the most important because if you don't do that, you're going to get step 3 wrong. And what you never want to do is do the wrong thing and put yourself in either the same situation or a worse one if you make something worse than it already is. So I tell that to my clients. I'm telling it to you. You want to fix your own credit? Make sure you are doing the right thing. You're making the right choices with how you challenge. The main thing is make sure you're doing something. You should be doing something. You should be doing something, right? So if you're scared of requesting a late payment update, Goodwill letter them to death for a late payment that you see. Okay. So lessons to come, because this again is lesson number 1, numero uno. There is so much to payment history. That's why it took me so long to give you this first lesson. So lessons to come: collections accounts versus charge-offs. Call it collections accounts and charge-offs, but I'm gonna say versus charge-offs because a lot of people don't know the difference. We're gonna talk about medical bills and student loans. We're gonna talk about the dispute flow. Dispute flow is how you dispute, how you challenge. What do you do first? What do you do next? I'll also include probably in the link of this video, because if you don't know dispute flow already, the easiest way will probably be to get the self-advocacy challenge from my website, because it gives you the first letter you need, the reinvestigation letter. It gives you method of verification, which will be step 2. And then it also has some other letters that are helpful when you are in the dispute process. So if you want to get started now before the dispute flow lesson comes out, that will probably be your best option. That actually just the self advocacy challenge also contains a late payment update letter as well as a personal information update letter, which are important as well. Actually, I should have added that to the lessons to come. Personal information, because that is another key. I talk about it a lot in the group, or not a lot in the group, but it has been talked about in the group. If you go to the guides in the group, you can see more about payment history and why it is important. We'll also talk about settlements and pay to deletes, which are important. Third party credit agencies. A lot of people don't know a lot about third party credit agencies, but in a lot of cases, they are just as important as the big three. Repos and bankruptcies. Third party credit agencies ties into that because third party credit agencies are very important in the dispute processes for repos and bankruptcies, because a lot of the information that the credit bureaus get comes from third party credit agencies. We will also have a lesson on introduction to consumer protection laws, because it is a lot. So it will be more of an intro just to let you know some basic laws that you should know. And then we will have a lesson on inquiries and why they are or are not that important, depending on your particular credit profile. All right, that is it. Thank you so much for tuning in. This was longer than I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be more around 30 minutes. We are about 11 minutes or 12 minutes longer than I wanted it to be, but I hope you got something from this. If anything confused you or you have any questions, please let me know. If you listen to this message or this lesson, should I say, and you liked it, you learned information, please be sure to like this video. If you have any questions, comment below and share this video, share the group. If you are a member of my group, share it. We're on Facebook. Finance Advocates has a Facebook group for anyone on YouTube watching this. Please come join us. We will be having more tips coming soon and more lessons for you. But again, if you have any questions, comment below or send an email to info@thefinanceadvocates.com. Thank you. Have a great day.